Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom, welcome back to today's Daf, which is YOMA Lamed Vav. We begin right on top of the Amud. Says the Gemara, Man Shamasli, De Omar, Bein Ha'ulam V'Lamizbeach Tzafin. Let's go back to the Mishnah for a moment, where we learned that the Kohen Gadol would approach his par. This was the par that he himself would pay for. It would provide a kapara for himself and his family. The Mishnah tells us the par was situated Bein Ha'ulam V'Lamizbeach. So it was in the area between the Mizbeach and the Ulam, which is really the entranceway to the Heichel. That's where the par was standing. That's where the Kohen Gadol would go to do the vidui, to confess on that par. And of course, at that very location, he would also do the shechita on that par. Now we know that karbonis, kachim, need to be shechted b'tzafin. Pasuk says, Al yerach hamizbeach zafoina lefnei Hashem. So that's where he's going to have to do shechita on his chatas, b'tzafin. Now, what constitutes tzafin? We have three shitas coming up in a brisa, and the Mishnah which describes the location of this par as being between the ulam and the mizbeach, of course on the tzafin side of the azara, but between the ulam and the mizbeach, in accordance with whose shita is that being said? Who holds that you can do the shechita on kachim at that point in the azara? Says the Gemara, Man shamas le de Amar bein ha'ulam v'lam mizbeach tzafin. Who is this shita? Who is this man de Amar that we're following? That says bein ulam v'lam mizbeach is considered tzafin and is kosher for the shechita of kachim. Apparently, it's Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Eliezer ben Shimon holds that the area between the ulam and mizbeach is considered a makayim roi for shechitas kachim. Rabbi Eliezer ben Rabbi Shimoni, the Sani we learned in the Bryce. Ezehu tzafin. What constitutes tzafin with respect to shechitas korbanis? Now let's just stop for a moment. We go into the Azara. We enter from Mizrach, going towards the Heichel, which is at Ma'arav. We see the Mizbeach right in the middle, and there is an imaginary line running through the Azara, east to west. On the right side of that boundary would be the Tzafin side of the Azara. On the left would be the Durham side, and further north, west, further to Marav would be the Heichel, followed by the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Of course, the beginning of the Heichel structure is called the Ulam, the anteroom, the antechamber, which takes you into the Heichel. Actually, there's a corner which is called Beis HaChalifos. That's the right corner of the Ulam, where they would hide they would store their knives. Actually, says Chalif is in Arabic is a knife. The question is, when the Torah says that the carbon is meant to be nishchat al yerach hamizbeach sofoina lifnei Hashem, three different ways to describe the precise location for shchitas kachim. Yerach hamizbeach is referring to the leg, literally the yerach, the thigh, the foot, the back of the mizbeach. Because you see, as Rashi explains, the ramp up to the mizbeach, which was on the left, on the darim of the mizbeach, that was considered pnei ha-mizbeach, the face of the mizbeach, the head of the mizbeach, the front. Yerach mizbeach is directly opposite that, on the other side. That was the tzafin facing wall of the mizbeach. That's called yerach mizbeach. One shita, Rabbi Yehuda holds, yerach mizbeach tzafin lefnei Hashem is referring to that area between the tzafin facing wall of the mizbeach, which is the yerach mizbeach, the back of the mizbeach, and the tzafin wall of the azara. So only that area, that location, is considered makayim roi for shchitas kachim. That's Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Eliezer Shimon adds another area as well. Not only can you do shchita alongside the mizbeach, between the mizbeach and tzafin, but you can proceed to Ma'arav as well, and you can do the shechita in that area which is considered between the Ulam and the Heichal, between the Ulam and the Mizbeach, provided that it is on the Tzafin side of the Azara. Rebbe will add a third location as well. Not only are those locations Roi, but we can add even the area upon entry to the Azara. Right when you enter the Azara, it is called the Makim for the Drisas Ragli Yisrael, Makim for Drisas Ragli Kayahanim. That's also Kasha for Shchitas Kachikashim, provided it's on the right side of the Azara, in the Tzafin of the Azara. So we actually have three possible locations. One alongside the actual Mizbeach, Al Yarech HaMizbeach, that's a raise of Yehuda. The area between the back of the Mizbeach and the Tzafin wall of the Azara. Rabbi Shimon adds to that. He says you can proceed further to Marav, and that location is also kosher for Shchitas Kachikachim because it is on the Tzafin side of the Mizbeach of the Azara, and it's Lifnei Hashem, so it's actually closer to the Heichal. So that makes up for the fact that it's not directly alongside the Mizbeach. Rebbe will add a third location. As you enter the Azara, that location is kosher as well because that's considered Tzafina. And it's somewhat connected to the Mizbeach, to the Yerech HaMizbeach. It's on that side of the Mizbeach, and therefore it's kosher as well. All Shitas would agree that once you go further west to the Beis HaChalifas area, that area is considered puzzle because that Makim doesn't really have a clear, unobstructed view of the Mizbeach. So that Makim is not considered Ro'oi for Shchitas Kachikach. So let's see the Brisa inside. Actually, let's start the Gemara again. The Mishnah tells us that the Par was situated between Ulam and Mizbeach, and that's where the Shchita took place. Man Shamasle, the Amar ben Ulam v'l Mizbeach Tzafin. Who is this man, the Amar, who considers that to be Tzafin with respect to the Makim Haroi l'Shchitas Kachikachim? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimoni. This Tanya, Ezehu Tzafin. What constitutes Tzafin in this context? Mikir Shomizbeach Tzafini. The space, the area, which extends from the Kir Mizbeach Tzafini, the northern facing wall of the Mizbeach, Va'ad Koisel Azara, up until the Koisel Azara, meaning the Tzafin wall of the Azara. Ukeneged Kol Mizbeach Kulei Tzafin. Only alongside that area, alongside the actual Mizbeach, is considered Tzafin. That's considered Yerech HaMizbeach Tzafin of Hashem. Divrei Rabbi Yaisi Rabbi Yehuda. So he holds you can only do Shchita right alongside the Mizbeach, between the Mizbeach and Tzafin. Rabbi Lez or Rabbi Shimon Moisef, he adds Af Bein Ha'ulam V'Mizbeach. Not only can it be done alongside the Mizbeach, you can even move closer to the Heichal, as long as you're on the right side of the Azara, on the Tzafin portion of the Azara. Rabbi Moisef Af Mokim Drisas Ragla Kehanim V'Af Mokim Drisas Ragla Yisrael. He allows Shchita for Kachikachim to be done at the entry point. As you enter the Azara, the Makim for Drisas Yisrael, Makim for Drisas Kohanim, even though it's so far away from the Heichal and not actually alongside the Mizbeach, because it's still considered Yerech HaMizbeach Tzafin of Nesha. Aval min HaChalifas Lefnim Hakol Moedim Shapasel. But past the Ulam, between the Beis HaChalifas and the Azara wall, and further beyond that, it's certainly out of range. It's not a Makim, which is directly opposite the Mizbeach, and therefore all agree it's not a Makim for Shchitas Kachikach. So we have three Shitas as to the exact location. Our Mishnah, which allows you to do the Shchita between the Ulam and the Mizbeach, Lema Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimoni, Rabbi. Perhaps it's in line with Rabbi Elazar, not Rabbi, because only Rabbi Elazar holds you can do Shchita up in that area. Says the Gemara, what do you mean? I feel Tema Rebbe. It certainly could be in line with Rebbe. Hashta ad Rabbi Yosi, Rabbi Yehuda Moisef. Look, if Rebbe is adding another location to Rabbi Yehuda, not only the area directly alongside the Mizbeach, even the first section as you enter the Azara is kosher. Ad Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon Lo Moisef. Don't you think he's adding to Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon as well? What does the Gemara mean? If we see that according to Rebbe, you can do Shechita so far away from the Heichal, at such a distance from the Lifnei Hashem concept, As you enter the Azara, that's also fine. Then of course you could do the Shechita in the area that Rabbi Shimon was describing, between the Ulam and Mizbeach, which is actually closer to the Heichel. It's more Lifnei Hashem. So when Rebbe came to add that first section of the Azara, he was just building upon the previous Shitas. On Rabbi Yehuda, on Rabbi Shimon, he agreed to that. He was coming to add a third zone as well. So when the Mishnah says that the par was between Ulam and Mizbeach, of course it's in line with Rebbe, who allows Shechita to be done there. So again, Hashad Rabbi Yehuda Moisef, he's coming to add on Rabbi Yehuda. Ad Rabbi Lazar of Shimon like Moisef, don't you think he's coming to add to Rabbi Lazar of Shimon? Of course he allows that area as well. Ben Ulam and Mizbeach is certainly mutter according to Rebbe. So what do you mean the Mishnah doesn't follow Rebbe? Anan hachika amrinan. We simply meant to say as follows. If the Mishnah would be in line with Rebbe, why does he do the Shechita so close to the Heichel, where there's always a chance of a bizayin, perhaps the animal will emit waste, marbitz gelolim. It's disrespectful for the Heichel. Why doesn't he bring it closer to the entrance of the Azara, to the exterior part of the Azara, further away from the Heichel? If we're following Rebbe, who allows Shechita to take place so far away from the Heichel, maybe kol Azara. Let him position the animal at the other side of the Azara, the farthest possible point from the Heichel. Apparently, we're not going with Rebbe, and that's why we have to place it near the Heichel between Ulam and Mizbeach. Says in 1 second, Elamai. So what are you proposing? Rabbi Lazar of Shimoni, that the Mishnah follows Rabbi Lazar of Shimon. That's why you're doing the Shechita between Ulam and Mizbeach. Why do we insist on placing it so close to the Heichel, where it might cause disrespect? Bring it out a bit more between the Mizbeach and the wall of the Azara, which even Rabbi Lezer of Shimon considers a suitable location for Shechita. Because remember, everybody agrees to Rabbi Yehuda. You can do the Shechita between the actual Mizbeach and the Tzafim wall of the Azara. That's actually the preferred Malkim. That's the actual Yerech Mizbeach. So the same kasha can be applied to Rabbi Lezer of Shimon. Fine. The Mishnah says you can do it ben Ulam and Mizbeach because Rabbi Lezer of Shimon allows it. But he certainly allows between Mizbeach and the wall. So push it back. Bring it away from the Eichel for the sake of the covet of the Eichel. And do the Shechita between Ulam, between Mizbeach and the wall of the Azara. Apparently there's another factor to consider. Elamai islach hamema. So you must say, the reason why we don't push it back, the reason why we do it as close as possible to the Heichel, is to account for the Kohen Gadol's weakness on that day. Elamai islach hamema misham chush the Kohen Gadol. We want to conserve his energy. He's fasting, he's working all day. And that's why we bring it as close as possible to the Heichel, to shorten his trip when he's going to have to bring the dam to the Heichel, to the Kodesh HaKadoshim. We want to make it easier for him. So although, in principle, you can do the Shechita between Mizbeach and wall, that's actually the more preferred area. The reason why you bring it closer to the Heichel, to make it easier for the Kohen Gadol. If that's the case, once you've introduced this new concept of Chosh of the Kohen Gadol, the Rabbi Nami, then you have a teretz on Rabbi as well. The Mishnah could be in line with Rabbi, who allows the Shechita to take place anywhere in the Azara, anywhere in the Tzafan Azara, even at the entrance of the Azara. The question was, if so, why do we place the par between Ulam and Mizbech? You know why? The Rabbi Nami, Mishum Chosh, Kohen Gadol. We want to conserve his energy. We're concerned about his weakness. And therefore we bring it as close as possible to the Heichel. If that's the case, you have no raya any longer that the Mishnah follows one Shita over the other. It can be in line with Rabbi, it can be in line with Rabbi Shimon. And the only reason why you bring it so close to the Heichel is to account for the Chosh of the Kohen Gadol. So conclusion, we had 3 Shitas regarding the Mokim for Shechitas Kachim Kachim, which the Torah describes as being Al Yerach Chamiz Beach Tzafon Elfnei Hashem. The question is, which word do we emphasize? Rabbi Yehuda holds Yerach Mizbeach means literally alongside the end of the Mizbeach, between the tzafon of the Mizbeach and the northern wall of the Azar. Only there. Rabbi Shimon adds another location as well. Not only is it kosher and the tzafon Mizbeach, but it's also kosher bein ha'ulam l'Mizbeach, because although it's not actually Yerach Mizbeach, A, it is somewhat related to the back of the Mizbeach, and B, it's Lifnei Hashem, which sort of compensates. And therefore it's mutter, according to Rebbe. In addition to those locations, we add a third location as well. Mokam Drisas Kohanim, Mokam Drisas Ragli Yisrael, which basically means anywhere on the tzafin side of the Azar. The reason why in our Mishnah we place the park so close to the Heichal, Mishum Chol the Kohen Gadol. Continues the Gemara. Roisha L'Darim, Upanav L'Marav. Mishnah tells us that the par was between Ulam and Mizbeach, and it was positioned Safin to Darim. So let's say I'm entering the Hazarim, I have the Mizbeach, and then I go past the Mizbeach to the Ulam. The animal was lengthwise Safin to Darim, its back to Darim, its head towards Safin, but the Mishnah says you actually twist the head over to Marav to face the Heichal. Farshim bring the pasuk v'shachat l'fnei Hashem. The makam shchita has to be facing the Heichal l'fnei Hashem. Roicha l'darim, although its head was facing Darim, but upanav l'marav, its actual face was facing Marav. Heicham mishkachla. How do you work that out? Amarav ba'okim es roisha. They would twist its head towards Marav. V'nukmei lehedya. If you're trying to have its face towards Marav, why not just position it that way? Its back towards Mizrach, its face towards Marav. Why do you have to do it between Tzafin and Darim and then twist him to Marav? We're concerned that he might emit waste, which is a bizoyin for the Mizbeach, and therefore we don't want his back towards the Mizbeach, rather his back will be towards the wall of the Azar, Tzafin wall, and then we'll have to twist his head over towards Marav, Lifnei Hashem. Tanarabba. Keitzad Seimich. What is the general procedure when one brings a carbon, whether a chatas, a shasham, an oila, and he'd like to do smicha, which is a mitzvah? The owner would lean b'chol koichai on that animal, and while he's doing so, he would say the vidui. Keitzad Seimich. Hazevach oimed b'tzafon upanav l'marav. So if we're speaking about kachim kachim, whose shchita needs to take place with tzafon, so the zevach was positioned with tzafon. Upanav l'marav, once again, we position its face towards Marav. V'asoymech, and the owner who's doing the smicha, oimed b'mizrach. Upanav l'marav. So his back is towards Mizrach, and his face is toward Marav. Alongside his animal, umaniach shtei yodav, bein shtei karnei shel zevach, and he places both hands between the horns of the zevach. Ubavad, of course, there can't be any chatzitza between his hands and the zevach. It needs to be direct contact. And he expresses a vidu. He confesses al chatos avayin chatos. If it's a chatos that he's bringing, he'll express vidu on the avera for which he's bringing the chatos. Val asham, if it's an asham, avayin asham, he'll express the avera on which he needs to bring the asham. Val oil. What does he do with the oil? Because the oil is also mechaper, somewhat. It's mechaper on a mitzvah asay, hamis, or a lav which was nitak lasay. What's a classic example of a lav nitak lasay? Noisar. Not meant to leave over basar of kachim past his man. If one should do so, there's a way to rectify that. Burn the basar. So it's a lav which is related, associated with an asay. So it mitigates the effect and the severity of the lav, and an oila can address it. So on an oila he would say vidu on various things. For instance, avain leket, shikropeya. He neglected to leave the leket over, the stalk that he dropped while he was harvesting, the shikha, the bundle he left behind, upeya, and he didn't leave over the corner of his field. So these three things are matnes aniyim. Leket belongs to the ani, shikha belongs to the ani, peh belongs to the ani. He didn't give it. He's over a mitzvah saseh, And actually, the Gemara is going to say it's not really a mitzvah say, but it's more than that. There's an assay, but also a lot. We're going to see in a minute. In any case, that's the video here. U'maser ani, for instance, if you forgot to give maser ani, so he does a video on that. Rashi actually deletes maser ani because he says during the video masters twice in 7 years, they would also include a video on maser ani. So that was already addressed. Tosfos disagrees. He says, yeah, over there it's with other things. It's not an independent video on maser ani. And also, that video which is said Pesach time in the 3rd and the 7th year of Shemitah, that's to confirm that he did it properly. He's telling Hashem that he did it properly, but here we're speaking that he neglected to do it properly, and he was over an Isser, and that's why he has to express the vidui on the Maser Ani which he failed to give. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda Kessler. So according to this Shita, an oila can address the avoin of leket shikha opeh. Rabbi Kiva Omer, no. Ein oila ba'a ela al hasei. It can only address the mitzvah hasei which was ignored. V'al lois hasei shenizik hasei, or a lois hasei which is associated with an hasei, like the noiser example we mentioned. Now, before we get further into this machlekes, let's just take a look at Rashi. 2 lines from the bottom. Rabbi Kiva Omer, ein oila ba'a. An oila can only address an asay or a lav anitik lasay. Tama mafarish b'tesefta. The Tosfos will explain why. Why is it that an oila will address these things? Alma oila ba. What's the point of an oila? The pasuk says v'nir tzoloi lechaper olav, which indicates that even an oila has kapor capacity. Im al krisis u'mises bezdin is coming to address a severe avera. Hari anshin amar. The Torah tells us what the einish is. An oila can't address that. Im al loisasei. I was speaking about an ordinary loisasei. Again, hari anshin amar. We have an einish for that. Malchus. Ha'ein oila ba. Apparently, what's the point of the oila? It's coming to address el al asay. Tosfos brings an example. He missed a sukkah, he missed tefillin. Va'al loisa say shenik lasay, or loisa say which is associated with an asay, shein loikin olav, which doesn't generate malchus. So we have 2 examples of averis which don't really have an appropriate einish. We don't have anything in the Torah to address them, and the oila will come take care of that. So once again, what are examples of deficiencies which the oila will address? According to Rabbi Yehuda Kessler, leket shikha opeh. According to Rabbi Kiva, no. He seems to disagree with that. But my kamifli, what's the point of contention here? Rabbi Yirmi, I'll explain. Beloved in avela kamifli, machlokes says how to treat the lav warning against eating an avela. Pasuk says, don't eat an avela. Rather, give it to the ger. Give it to the salt, to the guy. Give it away to others. Don't eat it yourself. Rabbi Kiva Savar, lav ma'al yehu, is considered a standard, typical lav. And the oila can't address that. Rabbi Yehuda Kessler Savar, lav. It's not lav ma'al yehu. It's not considered an ordinary lav. Rather, it's considered like a lav anitik lasay, and therefore an oila can take care of it. And likewise, when it comes to leket shikha opeh, but we have a lav. V'leket kitzurcha leisalakit. Torah is warning against taking things which are meant for the aniyim. But then the Torah says, you know what, leave it over for the aniyim. So we have a lav and an asay. The question is, do we treat it like an ordinary lav, in which case an oila cannot take care of that? Or do we treat it like a lav anitik lasay, which an oila can address? Now for further clarification, let's take a look at Rashi. Rashi up on top of the Amid. Beloved the Nevel Kamiflaki. Let's take it slow. Let's begin with Lav the Nevel. It says Rashi Dechsiv Asay Achrav. It's different than your typical Lav, which only has an Isser. Here, by Nevela, we have both aspects. Don't eat the Nevela, but then the Torah follows with the mitzvah Asay. Give it over to the ger, to the Nach. Dechsiv Asay Achrav. La ger, Asha B'Sharachat Titnana V'Achala. Umiyu, says Rashi, but nevertheless, even though the lav is followed with an essay, this isn't your typical lav hanitek lasei, which generally means that there's a way to remedy the lav. There's a way to retract, to reverse the lav, so to speak, to fix it up. Don't leave the basar past the time. If you do, burn it. That's a way to fix the issur. But here, you can't say that. Once you've eaten the nevel, you can't give it to the ger. It's too late. So here it's a little different than your typical lav hanitik lasei. There's no way to fix up the lav. So although the Torah follows the lav of the nasei, it's not to say that there's a way to fix up the lav. It must be that the essay here is really meant to leapfrog over to the other side of the lois essay, and is really saying as follows: don't eat the nevela, don't eat the nevela. Rather, give it to the ger and don't eat it. So, although when it comes to the seder apsukim, as far as the sequence of the actual pasuk, it's a lav and then followed by an essay. Don't eat it. Give it to the ger. But in practicality, in our practical world, it won't work. It must be reversed. Give it to the ger rather than eat it. That's the shayla. Is this considered like a lavanitik lasei or not? Do we follow the wording of the pasuk? The fact that the lav is followed with an essay? And that sort of sets it apart from your typical lav, which is never associated with an essay? Or do we say the fact that the Torah precedes the fact that the essay can only be fulfilled before the lav? This doesn't constitute a lav and a tiklasei. So that's the machlekes. Rekiva savar lav ma'alyu. This is a proper lav. You get malchus. Why? Because in this case, the essay can never fix up the isser that was already done. It's not like the noisa that you can burn after having left beyond his mind. It's not like the geneva that you can return after stealing it. You can't fix up. Once you've eaten the nevela, you can't give it to the guy any longer. It's considered a proper lav, and you get malchus. And the oila cannot address this. Likewise, when it comes to leket shikl v'peya, v'lav the leket shikl v'peya nami, asay de basrei meikor mashma. There's what we have in lav. Don't take the leket, don't take the shikl, don't take the peya. We're warning the farmer, leave it alone, don't take it. That's a lav. And the pasuk follows by saying, you know what, leave it over for the anim to take. So although when it comes to the actual configuration of the pasuk, it's a lav and then an asay, which seems to be along the lines of a lav and itik asay, but in practicality it doesn't work, because once you've taken the leket for yourself, you can no longer give it back to the aniyim. The point of the pasuk is leave over the portion of the crop which belongs to the aniyim. Leave it for them. That's their part of the sada. It's not yours. And once you're zoich in it, we don't want your donations. We don't want your tzedakah. That's what the Gemara holds at this point. More later we'll change this. But at this point we hold that once you've picked it up, it's too late. So in effect, there's no way to remedy that. There's no way to fix that up, to correct it. So despite the fact that we have an assay which follows the law, don't take it but leave it over, you must say here as well, just like by Nevela, that the essay which is stated after the law is meant to precede the law. Let it go, leave it over for the anim, and don't take it for yourself. This is not a lav and a tikla say. Says Rashi, "V'lav leket shikol pei nami asay de basrei." Even though we have an asay following the lav, mikara mashma. It's referring to the time zone prior to the Isra. The pasuk means as follows: "V'leket tzirch leisa laket, ella le'onitas venu v'lois laktan." Don't take it. Leave it over for the yoni, and don't pick it. So, although it's stated after the lav, it's really meant to be positioned before the lav. Do it properly. Leave it alone, and don't take it. V'lokila. That's why it gets malchus. Ve'in oila ba'olav. And as a result, since it's a standard lav with malchus, oila can't take care of that. That's Rabbi Akiva's approach. So once again, according to Rabbi Akiva, we have two examples: nevela, like a shikol apeya, where we find a lav which is followed by an essay, but that essay cannot be neskaim after the lav. The only time to fulfill that essay is before being over on the lav. Do it right, and don't be over the lav. Give it to the ger, don't eat the nevela. Give it to the ani, don't take it for yourself. That's not a lav anitik essay, and this is malchus, and the oil can't take care of that. As opposed to Rabbi Yehuda Kessler, he holds. True. In this case, he can't fix up the isser. Once he's eaten the nevela, he can no longer give it to the ger. Lav de nevela af agav da al korchach asay de basrei meikor mashma. It's true. The lav which follows the Isser of Achilas nevela must be cut and pasted and put before the Isser. Give it to the ger and don't eat it. But if you look at the pasuk, how does the pasuk configure it? Hoil basrei de lav ksiv, since it's stated after the lav, it's no longer considered a standard lav. Ein loikin alav. There's no malchus. To loidami, the lav de chasima. You see, lav de chasima is cited in Shas many times as the benchmark, as the gold standard of a lav which generates malchus. That's where the Torah speaks about malchus. Don't muzzle the animal while you're threshing with it. And if one should do that, he gets malchus. We learn from there. That's the benchmark. Anything that gets malchus has to be similar to lav de chasima. And if it's a lav hanitik laseh, for instance, it's not like lav de chasima, which is not litik laseh. Likewise, over here it says reisek lili. True, this isn't your typical lav hanitik laseh, because again, once you've eaten the nevela, there's no way to fix that. Once you've taken the leket, there's no way to fix that. Nevertheless, since we find an asay in this pasuk, where the lav followed by an asay, it's no longer similar and no longer to be equated with lav de chasima, and therefore there's no malchus. See, according to Lili, it's as though the pasuk is saying, I want to reinforce the essay. Don't eat the nevel, give it to ger. Don't take the leket. I want you to give it to the ani. So the isser isn't just a plain isser. Don't do something wrong. Rather, do it properly. Do it correctly. Give it to the ani and don't take it. Give it to the ger and don't eat the nevela. So this lav isn't just a standalone lav, a pure lav. It's associated somewhat with an asay. It's not just a negative element. Don't do that, something wrong. Rather, do something right. And I want to reinforce that by saying, don't do it wrongly. So there is some sort of correlation between the lav and the asay. Although, again, it's not your typical lav hanitik laseh, because you can't correct the lav once it was committed. Once you've eaten the nevel, there's no way to fix that. Still, according to Rabbi Yehuda Kessler, this lav is of a different nature than your typical lav de chasima, which provides the standard for malchus. Because here we have an asay associated with the lav, and that sort of mitigates the effect, the severity of the lav. It puts on it it adds a positive twist to it. And therefore, according to him, there's no malchus. And likewise, uba'a olav oila. And oila can address that. So that's regarding levela. And Rashi adds, of lav lekav shichro pe'anami, there as well. Afilu amrina da asay de basrei meikar mashma loy lokiller. Same thing applies to leka shichro pe'ah. Although you can't really fix it once you've transgressed, once you've taken it for yourself, you can no longer give it to the aniyim. And the essay, leave to the aniyim, is apparently referring to the time before, the time frame prior to taking it for yourself. So it's not really a lav hanitik laseh, but again, since it's associated with an asay, has that positive element to it, that positive twist, and there's no malchus, and an oila can take care of it. So this was Rabbi Yirmiyah's presentation of the two shittas, that according to Rabbi Yehuda, whether it's leket shiklo peah, whether it's nevela, that's not your typical lav, and therefore there's no malchus, and an oila can be mechaper on that as well. Continues the Gemara on the third line from the top. Abai Omar, I disagree. Nah, nothing doing. If you can't correct the lav by applying the essay afterwards, that's not called lav hanitik laseh. Therefore, he says, for instance, by nevela, everybody is masking, everybody agrees. That's a simple lav which generates malchus, and oil cannot take care of that, because once he's eaten that nevela, there's no longer anything that can be done. That's not called a lav hanitik laseh. Abai Amar the kuli amar lav de nevela lav ma'al yahavi. Everybody agrees by nevela it's a proper lav. The question is simply by leket shichro peah. Why? V'acha b'tazev k'mivliki. The pasuk says the farmer should not take the leket for himself. The peah, the shikha. Tazev, let go, leave it for the ani. The question is, which point in time is tazev referring to? Is it referring to the time frame prior to the owner wrongly taking the leket for himself? Or is it also referring to the current time frame, to the current moment after you already took the leket? Torah says, no, you still have a way out. Put it back on the field. That's the shayla. If it's referring to the moment after taking, it's referring to now, then we have a lavan etiklaseh on our hands. Even though he took it, he can fix it up by putting it back in the field. That's one sheet. That's basically Rekiva holds no. Taziv is referring back to the original moment in time, before he took it. Leave it there. Leave it free for the aniyim, and don't take it. But once he took it, it's too late. In which case, it's not a lavan etiklaseh, and there's malchus, and the oil can't take care of it. The question is how to define the word taziv. Let go. What does that mean, let go? Let go and don't take it. Or even if you've already taken it, let go of it. And you can fix up the isra. The Rabbi Akiva Savar taziv mikor mashma. Taziv is referring to the original point in time, before he took it. Once he took it, it's too late. And therefore it's a standard lav. There's no way to remedy the lav. It's a lav which generates malchus, and the oil can't take care of it. Rabbi Yitzchak Savar hashta mashma. Taziv is telling even now, once he's taken it, he can go ahead and fix that up, correct what he did, by leaving it go for the ani. So, in conclusion, we discussed what is considered a lavan etiklaseh. So, there are two examples of non-typical lavan etiklaseh. And according to Rabbi Yimir's presentation, Machlokes goes as follows. Rabbi Yitzchak holds, whether nevela, whether leket shechopeya, they're considered lavan etiklaseh, because although you can't really correct the lav once you've transgressed, you can't give out the nevela once you've eaten it. Nevertheless, the lav is somewhat associated with it, and I say, do it right and don't do wrong, which is different than the typical lav, in which case there's no malchus here, and an oil can take care of it. Rekiva says, no way. In both cases, I don't consider that a lavan etiklaseh, and there's malchus. Abaye held, when it comes to nevela, all agree. That's not a lavan etiklaseh. There's nothing that can be done after he ate the nevela. Machlokes pertains only to leket shechopeya. According to Rabbi Yitzchak, taziv means even now. Even once you've taken it, let go of it and give it back to the aniyim. According to Akiva, it's too late. Once he's taken it for himself, he can't just give it back. It's already his. And therefore, it's not considered a lavan etiklaseh, and malchus is generated by this love. Continues the Gemara, Tanu Rabbanon, Keitzad Misvad. Mishnah tells us the Kohen Gadol approaches the par and expresses a vide. What is the nusach of the vide? We have two shittas. According to Rabbi Meir, you start on the top with the most severe averos. Obviously, which is referring to mazid, pashati, referring to rebellious acts out of spite, anger, chas v'shalom towards Hashem. So, obviously is out of desire. Pashati is bemerit, out of spite. The chatasi is inadvertent averos, b'shoigig. So he starts sort of on top and goes down to the bottom. V'chein b'sorah mishtalech oimer, as we find by the video of the sorah mishtalech, v'svad olav, es kol avoynes b'nei Yisrael. So it begins with mazid. V'es kol pish'eyim, l'chol chatoisam. The last item on the list is a shoigig. So we see, you start on top and you work your way down. V'chein b'moishu oimer. We find that Moshe Rabbeinu himself, noise avoin, v'pesha v'chata, divrei. So Rabbi brings two rights, that the proper way of expressing vidui is by first expressing the most severe averos, and then going over to the more lenient averos. Menachamar lakam. The Siach Yitzchak explains that Rabbi holds the vidui is meant to generate tshuva, a feeling of remorse within the person. It's much easier to locate the more obvious averos, the more weighty averos, which are more obvious to the person. And once he begins with that, it sets the ball rolling, and puts him in that mindset, that mind frame of doing tshuva, and it generates more tshuva. And he starts uncovering different averos, smaller averos, shoigig, etc. So that's the way to do it, says Rameir. First you start with the more obvious averos, And once it gets into the mindset, the proper frame of mind, it's going to generate a genuine tshuva for the more lenient Averis as well. I really say nothing, no way. You don't have to start with the more Chomer. You start with the more lenient Averis. Look, you're trying to ask Mechila from Hashem. Don't go straight to the top. Start with the more lenient ones. And then work your way up. Not only this, but even that. Not only that, even that. Oven is referring to the mazit. He cursed hanefesh. He gets cursed for doing an oven. Apparently it's a mazit. Otherwise curse would not come for that. Pishoim elam arodim. It's referring to rebellious acts. So we find that pesha is merit. Things done by accident. So he brings a carbon chatos for doing something b'shkaga. Say the Rabbanan, if that's the case, if that's the correct definition of these terms, how do you propose that he starts on top? Once he's done vidui on the more severe averis, does it make sense to then drop down to the shkagos? Look, as Rashi explains, if they're going to be meichel on the more severe averis, then what's the point of mentioning the lighter averis? It's redundant. Rather, say the Rabbanon, start from the bottom and work your way up. Elakacha misvad, chatosi, bavisi, upashati l'fanecha, anibesi. I did chet, which is shogig. Then it goes up to avain, which is mazid, and all the way up to pshia, which is merit. So you start from the bottom and work your way up. I want to ask Mechila for this, not only for this, even for that. Even for that. So according to Rabbanan, it's more like a tefillah. I'm asking Hashem to be meichel me. In which case it makes sense to start with the lighter things and then work your way up the ladder. Like you find by David. So he begins with chet. He moves up to Havinu, Vershanu, Chatana, Vershanu, Radnu, Daniel. Said you find with Daniel. Daniel, Chatanu, Havinu, Vershanu, Murad. So according to Rabbanan, you begin at the bottom and work your way up. If that's the case, we have a kasha. Rabbi brought a riot from Moshe Rabbeinu, who said, Noisei avain v'pesha v'chato. Elomao shamar Moshe Noisei avain v'pesha v'chato. Why did Moshe begin from the top and then come back down? Omar Moshe v'nekadosh baruch. He wasn't saying vidui. He was just davening to Hashem as follows: Rebbeinu shel b'sha'ah sheYisrael choytin lefanecha v'ois in tshuva. When Yisrael do chet and do tshuva, please Hashem, this is a tefillah. Asay lahem zdoinois kishkagos. I want to ask you to please treat the zadim, the mezidim, just as you treat the shkagos, just as you meichel for things done by accident. Be meichel for things done on purpose as well. We say by Yom Kippur, that's when Yisrael kilchal am b'shkaga. It's a limit schus on a yid. He really wants to do the right thing. The Yitzhar pulls in all directions. It's really a shogeg. It wasn't done with real kavanah, real purpose. That was the point of the tefillah. It wasn't an expression of vidu. It was just treat these doines like you treat the shkagos. But in reality, when it comes to the proper expression, the sequence of vidu, it's meant to go from the kal el hakoid, from chet to oven to pesha. Amar Rabba bar Shmuel Marav. Halacha kedibur chachamim. The halacha follows the chachamim. You begin with chet, with shogeg, you work your way up to mezid, and over to pesha. Pshita, of course. Yachad Rab. Whenever we have a dispute between an individual and a multitude, halach Rab, we follow the Rab, we follow the Rabban. Isn't it obvious? Ma'al the tema, but perhaps there's room to think. Mistaver Tamid Rameir. Rameir's approach seems to be more plausible. To come a Lekra of a pasuk, which was the pasuk by the Sora Mishtaleach. Right, he had two rayas. He had the raya from Moshe Rabbeinu, which we addressed. We had the other pasuk by Sora Mishtaleach, which said, "Visvada olav eskal avoynes b'nei Yisrael eskal pishayim chol chatoisam," which seems to be referring to the vidui process. And how does the pasuk present the sequence? First on top, first the oven, then all the way down to chet. So if that's a right to Rabbi Meir, then perhaps we should follow that sheet. Kamash Malon. No. Rabbi Shmuel tells us, actually follow the Rabbanon. Their shita prevails. And in fact, that's how we do it today. We start from Chet, proceed to Avoin, and over to Pesha. Says there was a story with Ahu, this fellow, this Shliach Tzibur, the Nochis Kamei de Rabba. So he was davening with Tzibur in front of Rabba. And this was after the Churban, so they would go through the Seder Avodah, Yom Kippurim. As Rashi says, the Pasuk says, Unushalma Param Svasenu. As we do today, we express the whole Seder Avodah, which is instead of bringing the actual carving. And in what order did he express the vidui? He followed Rameya's sequence. He went starting from the top down to the bottom. Amalei, so Rabbi asked him, Shavkas Rabbanon, you've abandoned the Rabbanon, Vavas Karmeir? You followed Rameya? Why did you do that? Amalei Karmeis, really. I hold like Rameya. Ketechsiv, B'Sefer, Oiraisa de Moshe. Just as it's stated in the Torah. Sefer Oiraisa de Moshe. We have a passage which says that it's meant to be first the more severe averos, and then over to the more calm. That's why I follow that sheet. So in conclusion, how does the Kohen Gadol do vidui on the par? According to our mayor, you begin with the mezidin first. So that's the oven pesha category. And then to the chet. And it appears that when it comes to the mazid category, oven and pesha, he'll say first oven and then pesha. See, it's really a kash here. If you begin on top, pesha is more severe than oven. That's rebellion. That's in spite. That's lahachis. But it seems like he puts it into two categories. First, the mazid category, in which oven precedes pesha. Mashal says oven is more common than pesha. It's more common that a person should be drawn after his desires, that they actually chas v'shalom do things in spite. So when it comes to the mazid category, he goes ahead and he puts oven before pesha. But at the end of the day, he put the mazid category before the shoygig. Oven and pesha precede chet. Whereas according to Chachamim, it's meant to be the other way around. You begin with the light averos, ask Hashem to forgive us for that, and then you work your way up, chet to oven to pesha. Continues the Gemara Tana Rabban. The keeper ba'adoi ba'ad beis, which the Mishnah applied to the vidui. How's the Kohen mechaper? He expresses vidui and generates kapara. The kapara is dvarim hakasav medaber. The Torah is referring to kapara through expression of words, through vidui. Ata oimer, the kapara is dvarim. You maintain through words. Oyein ela kapara is damim. Perhaps there's no vidui here. The keeper ba'adoi ba'ad beis means he'll bring kapara through doing zerek, zrika, hazon the dam. That's the case. How do you even know vidui? By the parsha Kohen Gadol. Answers the Gemara. Harei ani dam. We apply Gzera Shava. Nemra kan kapara. Here we have a term kapara, the chiper. Nemra la halon kapara. And over there, by the Sarah Mishtalech, the Sarah which is sent down to the Midbar, we have a term kapara as well. L'chaper olav, l'shalach, oisel azazah. Ma kapara hamura basar dvarim. Just as the kapara reference over there is certainly a reference to dvarim. Why? He wasn't brought in as a carbon in the Beis Hamikdash. There was no matan damim there. He was simply thrown off the mountain. So the kapara over there evidently is referring to expression of words, vidui. Af kapara hamura bapar dvarim. Likewise over here by the par, the chiper is a reference to vidui dvarim, which generates kapara. Of course, this is in addition to the kapara sadam. But we learn from here that there's a kapara dvarim as well. Now, if you have something to challenge this Zereshava, this connection, I'll come up with another raya that the chiper is referring to kapara dvarim. Harayu Omer. We find further down the parsha, in reference to the par of the Kohen Gadol, a passage which says, "V'hikir v'aharon es par achat as hashaloi, v'chiper ba'adai u'ba'ad beisai," and then the passage concludes with the words, "V'shachat es par achat as hashaloi." So v'chiper ba'adai is before the shchita. V'adayin lo nishchita par. There's no shchita done yet. Apparently, v'chiper is not referring to the dam. Rather, kapara's dvarim vidui. Okay, so we have a clear raya that the Kohen Gadol would express vidui on his part. Ma'ivim nafshach loymar. What do you mean you had something to challenge my Gzera Shava? Initially, I connected par to Sar Mishtalech, but then we said, well, maybe you have something to challenge that connection, and therefore we came up with another right. What was that possible argument? Perhaps I'll say, you're looking to connect? Let's connect to something else. Neilaf misor hanasav b'fnim. Let's connect the par kohen gadol to the sor hanasav b'fnim. There were two seirim in Yom Kippur. One was la'azazel. One was chatas l'Hashem, brought in the Beis Hamikdash as a korban. Let's connect it to that sor. Shekaparasa b'damim, whose kaparas generate through dam. We don't find vidui by that sor. The kapara there was brought about through the hazaz hadam. Perhaps here as well, by the kohen gadol's par, the chipah is referring to kaparas damim and not kaparas devarim, not vidu. Harayu oimer. That's how we come back. That's why we come back with the next raya. The chipah, we have a passage which says the chipah ba'ad ba'ad beis v'shachat v'adayim lo nishchat apar. The keeper here is referring to the time, a point in time prior to shchita. We don't have dam yet, and apparently it's not kaparas hadam. That was speaking about the rather kaparas dvar. Continues the Gemara. U'menai sheba'ana. We learned in the Mishnah, the Kohen would address the Hashem and start his video with the words Ana Hashem. How do we know Ana is meant to be applied? Ne'emar kan kapara. We have the reference to kapara here. V'ne'emar la'alan b'chayrev kapara. By chayrev, by Har Sinai, after the Masa Egel, we have the term kapara mentioned. Moshe Rabbeinu davened to Hashem, Ula yachapro bat chataschem. We draw a parallel. Mala halon ba'ana, just as over there. We have the word ana employed. Please Hashem, afkan ba'ana. Here as well by the video par, ana is applied. Umenayin shebeshem. Mishnah says that the nusach was ana Hashem. He's referring to Hashem, the Shem first. How do we know that's meant to be applied here? Once again, we connect par to something else. Nemar kan kapara. We have a lashon kapara over here. V'chipa ba'adai. V'nemar be'elgal rufa kapara. By the Egal Rufa, which is brought on account of finding somebody killed on the road. So that Egal Rufa was brought, and we have the Lashon Kapara there. Kapar la'amcha Yisrael shepadisa. Connected two things. Ma lahalam b'Shem, just as over there. We have Haskaras Hashem. The Kohanim would say, Kapar la'amcha Yisrael asher padisa Hashem. So we invoke the name Hashem. The Marsha says, Shem Hashem, Yitkei Vavkei denotes Rachmim, and that's what the Kohen is trying to tap into, to generate Rachmanis and Chesed on Yisrael, to give them Kapara. Just as we find Hashem mentioned by Glarufa, Afkan B'Shem, likewise by the Kapara, Chiba Ba'adai of the Par Kohen Gadol, we invoke Hashem's name. Om Rabbi, B'Yishlai Mechoyrev Me'egla Rufa L'Yolf. Now by Choyrev, when Moshe Rabbeinu's tefillah to Hashem after the Egel, we don't find the Haskaras Hashem. So we understand, that's Pashut. We can't learn Choyrev from Egel Rufa. We can't learn one from the other. Why? Because past is past. It's over. Egel Rufa took place. The tefillah on the Egel took place before the halach of Egel Rufa. So we can't learn one from the other. Ela Egel Rufa teleth mechoyrev. But why can't Egel Rufa learn from Choyrev? In both cases we have the Lashon Kapara. Just as by Choyrev, Moshe Rabbeinu used the word Ana, perhaps Egel Rufa will also require that term. Perhaps you'll say, you're right, that the Kehanim would mention the word Ana, but at the time we learned in the Mishnah, they wouldn't say it. HaKehanim Oimrim. By Egel Rufa, the Kehanim simply said, Kaper la'amcha Yisrael, be mechaper for your nation. We don't find Ana, V'ilu ba'ana like a Amr. We don't find them mentioning Ana. Why not? Kasha, we'll leave it as a kasha. So in summary, the pasuk says, "V'chiper ba'adei ba'ad beisai." What does v'chiper mean? Is the Kohen Gadol going to do kaparas dvarim through vidoy, or is it simply referring to the dam placed on the mizbeach? By Somer Shtalech, we have a term kapara, which is referring to vidoy dvarim. By Sar Nasa B'fnim, kapara is referring to vidoy dam. Which way should we go? Well, we have a pasuk, v'chiper ba'adei ba'ad beisai, and then v'shachat. Apparently, the v'chiper is before the shchita. It can't be speaking about dam, which is not yet here. They're referring to the kaparas dvarim through vidu. So, a quick chazar to this daf. We learned in the Mishnah that the Par Kohen Gadol was situated between Ulam and Mizbeach, although technically, according to some shittas, you could have placed it further out in the Azar, away from the Heichel. We wanted it close to the Heichel to make for an easy trip for the Kohen Gadol, and Misham Chosh to the Kohen Gadol, because he had to take the dam afterwards. That's why we shortened the distance to conserve his energy. We learned that the pyre was standing between Safan and Dharam, facing Dharam, but its head was twisted towards Myra. The Kohen Gadol would stand there and do vidui. We learned that vidui has to be done without chatzitza, needs to be direct contact with the carbon. An oil is mechaper on an asay, and also on a lav hanitik asay. Whether nevela or leket shikl pei are considered lav hanitik asay, we had a discussion. What is the proper sequence of vidui? According to Rav Meir, start on top. You speak about the more obvious averos, and then that generates feelings of tshuva in the person, and he finds undiscovered averos as well. According to Chachamim, it's more the tefillah aspect that we're focusing on. Start from the easier things, and then work your way up. And Rachipa Bad Beisei, by the Park and Gadol, is referring to Vidui Dvar. Haslacha Rabbi to you on Kultiv.